Your Lola scrubbed floors in Hong Kong so you could go to school. Your Tatai missed your graduation because he was on a cargo ship somewhere between Singapore and Rotterdam. Your Nanai worked double shifts in a hospital, on Christmas, so your family could eat something better than rice and dried fish. This video is for them, because what they did, what we have been doing for decades, was never just sacrifice. It was strategy. And the world's most powerful governments have known it for years. They just never planned on telling you. In 2023, the Australian Department of Health published an internal report. They need 79,473 nurses by 2035. They buried it in their own website. They did not put it on the evening news, because if Filipinos fully understood what that number meant, we would stop negotiating from weakness. The United States has 4.6 million Filipinos inside its borders. Filipinos are only 1% of the U.S. population, but 4% of its entire nursing workforce. The American hospital system runs on Filipino sacrifice, and America has never once said thank you loud enough. Canada's own statistics office is projecting the Filipino population will hit 2 million by 2041. Not because Canada is generous, because Canada is desperate. These are not opinions. These are not Filipino pride posts. These are government documents, official reports, numbers they publish themselves, hoping we would never connect the dots. Today, we connect the dots, because your Lola deserved to know her sacrifice was not just noble, it was indispensable. This is the story of 8 industries where Filipinos don't just work in the global economy, we are the reason it functions. And if you have a Filipino parent, a Filipino friend, a Filipino colleague who has ever been made to feel small in a foreign country, send them this video, because after today, they will never see themselves the same way again. Number 8. Global shipping. The choke point the world cannot afford to lose. Let's start with a question nobody in power wants you to ask. What happens if Filipino seafarers stop working for just 72 hours? Not a strike, not a protest, just stop. Here is the answer. 90% of all world trade moves by sea. Your phone, your food, your medicine, your fuel, everything. According to the International Chamber of Shipping and the BIMCO 2023 Seafarer Workforce Report, Filipinos crew between 25 and 35% of the entire global merchant fleet, more than any other nation on Earth. But here's the number they deliberately leave out of the headline. It is not 25% of random ships, it is the ships that matter. Officers, chief engineers, navigation specialists, the people who actually run the vessel. The former Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization said it himself. Filipino seafarers are the backbone of world trade. He said it quietly, in a speech, not in a press release, not in a policy announcement. Because if the world truly understood how dependent global trade is on one nation, that nation would have leverage. And in 2024, for the first time in history, the Philippines used it. The Magna Carta of Filipino seafarers was signed. Legally protected wages, career rights, international labor protections. For decades, the world relied on Filipino seafarers without being required to treat them fairly. That era is now over. The backbone of world trade just got legal protection, and it has a Filipino name. But if you think controlling a third of global shipping is power, wait until you see what is happening inside America's hospitals, and why the US government has never talked about it on television. Number 7. Healthcare in the USA. The secret America is hiding from itself. Here's the crisis the American healthcare system does not want its own citizens to fully understand. 4.6 million Filipinos live in the United States. According to the U.S. Census Bureau and Pew Research Center, the Philippines is the 4th largest source of immigrants to America. But here is the statistic that stops rooms full of healthcare executives cold. According to data from the National Institutes of Health, Filipinos are only 1% of the U.S. population, but 4% of its entire nursing workforce. 1% of the people, 4% of the nurses. And it goes much deeper than that. A Remitly Immigrant Healthcare Index report revealed that 348,000 Filipino healthcare professionals work in the United States. That is the single largest group of immigrant healthcare workers in the entire country, more than Mexico, more than India, more than any other nation on Earth. 1 in every 7 immigrant healthcare workers in America is Filipino. And among immigrant registered nurses specifically, Filipinos make up 28%, more than 1 in 4, of every foreign-trained nurse keeping American hospitals from collapse. In 2024 alone, 28,258 Filipino nursing graduates sat for the U.S. nursing licensure exam. 28,000 in a single year. America did not build this pipeline. Filipinos built it themselves, generation after generation, showing up for a country that underpaid them, that mispronounced their names, that questioned their credentials. And still, the American hospital system would not survive a single week without us. They know it. They just hope we never figure out what that knowledge is worth. But Australia figured it out first, and what they did next should terrify every Filipino who has ever felt invisible. Number 6. Healthcare in Australia, the report they quietly published and hoped you would never read. There is a document sitting on the Australian government's own website. Most Filipinos have never seen it. It is called the Nursing Supply and Demand Study, published by the Australian Department of Health and Aged Care in 2023. And buried inside that document is a number that changes everything. 79,473. That is how many nurses Australia needs by 2035. Not an estimate from a think tank, not a projection from a consultant. Their own study, their own number, their own admission, and the country they are looking at to fill that gap? You already know the answer. Filipino nurses already make up 6% of Australia's entire registered nurse workforce. Filipino-born workers represent 10.6% of all hospital workers in Australia and 9.6% of every aged care residential worker, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. But here's the moment that revealed exactly how much power we actually have. In 2024, Australia tightened visa conditions affecting Filipino nursing students. Within weeks, Australia's own healthcare advocates publicly sounded the alarm. Hospital systems warned the government directly. The Filipino nurse pipeline was under threat, and without it, the Australian health system had no backup plan. Think about what that moment actually means. The Australian government had to choose between immigration politics and keeping its hospitals open. That is not a position of weakness for Filipinos. That is called leverage, and we are only just beginning to use it. Number 5. ITBM, $40 billion, 1.9 million mines, and the industry the world still gets wrong. Here is something the world's biggest corporations know that they will never admit in public. They cannot run their operations without Filipinos. Not efficiently, not reliably, not at scale. According to IBPAP, the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines, by end of 2025, the Philippine ITBM sector generates $40 billion in annual revenues and employs 1.9 million Filipinos. But the word call center, the lazy label the world still uses, is an insult dressed up as a job description. Here is what those 1.9 million Filipinos are actually doing. Financial analysis for Fortune 500 companies, legal research for international law firms, medical coding and diagnostic support for hospitals across the USA, content moderation for every major social platform on Earth, supply chain optimization for global manufacturers, AI training data processing for the world's biggest tech companies. These are not call center agents. These are the people running the back office of the global economy, and the companies that depend on them are not moving operations away from the Philippines. They are moving more operations in, because they did the math. Replacing Filipino cognitive workers is not just expensive. In many cases, it is impossible. For every Filipino in Canada, the USA, or Australia who came from this industry, you did not just work a job. You trained in a world-class knowledge economy, and you carried that expertise with you when you arrived. The $40 billion stays in the Philippines. The talent? It powers the world. And while our people are running global operations, the money they are sending home just hit a number that nobody predicted. Number 4. OFW remittances. $38.34 billion, and a record they did not expect us to break. This number needs no drama added to it. The number is the drama. In 2024, Filipino overseas workers sent home $38.34 billion in remittances. Confirmed, verified, published by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas on February 17, 2025. A 3% increase from 2023, a new all-time record high. $38.34 billion sent home from hospital wards in Los Angeles, from cargo ships in the Pacific, from construction sites in Toronto, from aged care homes in Melbourne, from data centers in Singapore, from households in Hong Kong and Dubai and London and Riyadh. Every dollar of that $38.34 billion represents a sacrifice, a missed birthday, a holiday spent alone, a phone call instead of a hug. But it also represents something that no other diaspora on Earth has ever matched: the most reliable, the most consistent, the most disciplined transfer of value from the global economy back to a single nation in the history of modern migration. Through typhoons, through pandemics, through financial crises and global recessions, we send the money home, every time, no matter what. And in 2024, we broke our own record. Number 3. Canada and Australia. Two governments competing for the same people and hoping you do not notice. Here is something both the Canadian and Australian governments understand, that neither one will say out loud at a press conference. They need Filipinos more than Filipinos need them. Canada first. According to the 2021 Canadian census, 957,355 people of Filipino origin live in Canada. The Philippines is the third largest source of immigration to Canada, after India and China. And Statistics Canada projects that number will surpass 2 million by 2041. Not because Canada decided to be generous, because Canadian hospitals need our nurses. Canadian construction sites need our engineers. Canadian tech companies need our professionals, and they cannot find enough of them anywhere else. Now, Australia. According to the Australian Department of Home Affairs, in 2023 to 2024, the Philippines represented 18% of Australia's total skilled migration, one of the top 3 source countries. Filipino skilled visas grew by 32% in a single year. In Western Australia, Filipinos received 22.9% of all skilled visas, 58% growth from the previous year. In Queensland, Filipino skilled migration grew by 72.7% in a single year. 72.7% in 1 year. And the total Filipino-born population in Australia? 361,860 people as of June 2023, a 65.3% increase in just 10 years. Filipinos are now the 5th largest migrant community in all of Australia. Australia is not welcoming Filipinos out of kindness. Australia is competing for Filipinos out of necessity. The mining companies of Western Australia, the construction firms of Queensland, the hospitals of New South Wales, the aged care facilities of Victoria, all of them, looking at the same country, and that country is ours. Number 2, clean energy and technology, the workforce gap they cannot fill without us. Here is a number from the Royal Bank of Canada that the Canadian government quietly hopes its own citizens will not connect to Filipino migration. Canada's net zero transition will create 400,000 new clean energy jobs by 2030. 400,000. And according to Electricity Human Resources Canada, the renewable energy sector already has a 13.1% job vacancy rate, more than 6 times the national average of 2.1%. 6 times. The jobs exist, the workers do not. Except in one country. Filipino engineers and technical professionals trained in the most punishing energy environments on Earth. Solar panels that survive Category 5 typhoons. Power systems that keep hospitals running during flooding. Microgrids built on volcanic islands with unreliable infrastructure. If your systems survive the Philippines, they will absolutely survive Alberta. And in Australia, the mining and resources sector generates over $250 billion a year. It is the backbone of the entire Australian export economy, and it is going through the biggest technological transformation in its 150-year history. Autonomous vehicles, AI-driven geological modeling, remote operation centers managing sites the size of small cities. According to the Australian Department of Home Affairs, Western Australia alone granted 2,110 skilled visas to Filipino nationals in 2023 to 2024. 22.9% of WA's entire skilled migration intake, 58% growth in 1 year. The Australian mining industry is not waiting for Filipino talent, it is actively competing for it, because they already know what the data confirms. When a Filipino professional is on the job gets done. Number 1. The cognitive economy, the secret weapon we have been carrying our entire lives without knowing its value. Here it is, the one that changes everything. There is a phrase that the world's top economists are using to describe the most valuable resource of the 21st century. They call it the cognitive economy. The idea that the highest value asset in the world today is not land, not oil, not even artificial intelligence. It is the trained human mind, operating under pressure in complex and unpredictable environments, with limited resources and zero margin for error. And here's the truth that every powerful government and every major corporation already knows, but has never once said to a Filipino worker directly. You are the most prepared people on Earth for this economy. Not because of luck, not because of geography, because of everything you survived to get here. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, 2.19 million OFWs were deployed globally in 2024. Not just workers, professionals, engineers, nurses, IT specialists, seafarers, educators. All of them carrying expertise forged in conditions that no university in Canada, the USA, or Australia can teach in a classroom. You cannot teach someone to problem solve under a typhoon. You cannot simulate what it means to keep a hospital running when the equipment breaks and the power goes out and the patients keep coming. You cannot replicate in a training room what it means to leave your family, cross an ocean, start from zero in a country that mispronounced your name, and still deliver results that make you irreplaceable. That is not a soft skill. That is the most valuable professional asset in the world right now, and it belongs to us. So, to every Filipino nurse working a double shift in California tonight, to every construction worker on a Toronto site in minus 20 degrees, to every seafarer somewhere in the middle of the Pacific, away from his children, to every IT professional in Sydney proving themselves in a room where they are the only Filipino, to every family in the Philippines waiting for that monthly transfer, you are not on the outside of the global economy looking in. You are the engine it runs on. The $38.34 billion is proof. The 4.6 million in the USA is proof. The 79,473 nurses Australia desperately needs is proof. The 957,355 in Canada and doubling is proof. The 35% of the world's merchant fleet is proof. They need us more than they will ever say out loud. Now we are saying it for them. I want to say something now that nobody in your office will say to you, that nobody at immigration told you when you landed, that the news will never put in a headline. You did not come to the United States, Canada, or Australia because you were desperate. You came because you were exactly what they needed. The nurse working a double shift in Melbourne right now, you are the reason that ward is still open. The engineer on a construction site in Toronto in minus 20, you are the reason that building gets finished on time. The IT professional in San Francisco building systems that millions depend on, you are not a diversity hire. You are the most qualified person in that room. The seafarer somewhere between Rotterdam and Singapore right now, away from his children. The world does not function without you. And to every Filipino still in the Philippines, watching your friends and siblings build lives abroad, wondering if your moment is coming. Your moment is not coming. Your moment is already here. The $38.34 billion our people sent home in 2024 was not just money. It was proof. Proof that we did not just survive in the hardest economies on earth. We became irreplaceable inside them. So the next time someone underestimates you at work, the next time someone struggles to pronounce your name, the next time you feel invisible in a country that cannot function without you, remember these numbers. Remember these facts. Remember that right now, a government report is being written about how much they need us. They just have not told you yet. Now you know. If this video hit you, share it. Not for the views, for the Filipino who needs to hear it tonight. Drop a comment below and tell me 3 things. Where are you watching from? What industry are you in? And who in your family sacrificed so you could be where you are today? I read every single comment, because this channel exists for one reason only: to tell the Filipino story the way it deserves to be told.